Have you ever wondered how one man can forgive his enemies after 27 years in prison? His name was Nelson Mandela. He lost his freedom, but he never lost his hope. He walked out of prison, not with anger, but with peace. And today we discover why together now. It was a warm morning in 1918 in Mvezo, South Africa. A small baby was born into a royal family. His name was Nelson Mandela, but his early name was Rolihlala. It means troublemaker. This name would follow him for many years. His father was a local chief. His family had respect and history. They lived close to the land. They lived with traditions. Life was simple, but it had strong meaning. South Africa was already changing at that time. White leaders controlled the country. Black people had very few rights. They could not move freely. They could not choose their leaders. This was the beginning of a system called apartheid. Apartheid means separation by race. Mandela did not understand all this as a baby, but the world around him was already divided. Two worlds lived side by side. One had power, one had pain. His family believed in dignity. They believed in honor. These values entered his heart very early. He learned to listen. He learned to observe. He learned to stay calm. No one knew then what this child would become. No one knew he would change a nation. But the first steps of his long journey had already begun. It was a quiet afternoon in Kunu, South Africa. Mandela spent his childhood there. The village was green and open. Children ran freely. They played near rivers. They learned from nature and from elders. Mandela lost his father when he was very young. This was a deep loss. His life changed quickly after that moment. He was sent to live with a royal guardian. This guardian was a chief. His name was Jongintaba. Mandela now lived in a larger home. He saw leadership up close. In this new place, he learned many things. He watched how leaders spoke to people. He saw how problems were solved with calm words. He learned patience. He learned respect. Mandela also went to school for the first time. A teacher gave him a new name. She called him Nelson. This was common at that time. African children were given English names. It was easier for the system. But it also took something away. He was a quiet boy. He listened more than he spoke. He was not loud. He was not aggressive. But inside, something was growing. He saw unfair treatment around him. He saw people with no voice. These moments stayed in his mind. They did not leave him. They were small seeds. One day, those seeds would grow strong. It was a bright morning in 1937 in Healdtown, South Africa. Mandela was now a young man. He was studying in a boarding school. The air felt different here. It was strict. It was controlled. But his mind was growing fast. He was not the strongest student at first. He struggled with rules. He questioned unfair treatment. Teachers noticed his silence. Friends noticed his thinking. Something important began to appear. He had a strong sense of justice. Justice means what is right and fair. When he saw unfairness, he could not ignore it. This feeling became his inner strength. Mandela also discovered his voice, not loud at first, but clear. He learned how to speak in front of others. He learned how to listen deeply. He learned how to stay calm in conflict. He joined student groups. These groups discussed rights and fairness. Many young people shared anger. But Mandela started to focus on solutions. He believed change needed discipline, not only emotion. People began to notice him. He was not the most powerful. He was not the richest. But he had something stronger. He had purpose. And slowly, that purpose started to guide his life direction. A path was forming. A difficult path, but a meaningful one. It was a grey evening in 1948 in South Africa. A new political system grew stronger. It was called apartheid. This system divided people by race. It gave power to a few. It removed rights from many. Mandela was now a young lawyer. He saw injustice every day. Black South Africans were treated unfairly in courts, jobs, and cities. Laws were strict, movement was controlled, fear was everywhere. He joined the African National Congress, also called ANC. This group fought against apartheid. At first, they used peaceful protests. They believed in dialogue and patience. But the government did not listen. Instead, it became more strict. Protests were stopped. Leaders were arrested. The pressure increased every year. Mandela felt a deep conflict inside. Should they stay peaceful always? Or should they resist in a stronger way? This question divided many people. Danger also grew around him. Police watched leaders closely. Meetings were risky. Speaking openly could lead to arrest. Still, Mandela did not step back. He continued his work. He continued speaking for justice. He believed silence was not an option. The world around him was closing slowly, but his determination was opening wider. A storm was coming, and life would soon change forever. It was a cold night in 1962 in South Africa. Mandela was arrested. The government called him a criminal. He was taken away from his family, from his freedom, from his normal life. The court was silent but heavy. The charges were serious. He was accused of planning resistance against the government. The punishment was severe. Everyone waited for the sentence. Mandela stood still. His face was calm, but inside, many thoughts moved fast. He knew this moment would change everything. The judge spoke the words, life imprisonment. These words mean prison for the rest of life. No return home, no normal future. The room felt empty after that. His supporters felt broken. Some cried. Some stayed silent. Hope felt very small that day. Mandela was taken to prison. First, Robben Island, a small island prison surrounded by cold water. Escape was almost impossible. The walls were hard. The work was hard. The rules were strict. He was placed in a small cell. No comfort, no privacy, only stone and silence. Days felt long. Nights felt longer. He was separated from the world. Letters were limited. Visitors were rare. Time moved slowly, very slowly, but even in this darkness, something stayed alive inside him. A small light, a quiet belief that injustice could not last forever. It was a grey morning in 1964 on Robben Island. The sea around the prison was cold and endless. Waves hit the rocks again and again. Mandela woke up inside a small stone cell. The air was heavy. The silence was deep. Every day looked the same. Wake up. Work. Return. No change. No hope outside. Only rules and stone walls. But something inside Mandela was changing. Not breaking, but growing stronger. One morning, prisoners were taken to the quarry. A quarry means a deep hole in the ground where stone is cut. The sun was bright, but the work was cruel. Stones were heavy. The heat was sharp. Mandela lifted the hammer. Again and again. Stone after stone. His hands were tired. His body was weak, but his mind stayed awake. Then, something unexpected happened. A guard shouted at him, loud, angry. He pushed Mandela forward. Other prisoners looked down. Fear filled the air. Mandela stopped. He did not shout back. He did not fight. He just looked at the guard. A long silence followed. Then Mandela spoke slowly. Calm voice. Clear words. "You can take my body," he said, "but not my mind." The guard froze. For a moment, everything became still. Even the wind felt quiet. That moment changed everything inside the prison. Mandela was no longer just a prisoner. He became a symbol. Other prisoners started watching him, listening to him, respecting him. Later that night, inside his cell, Mandela sat on the cold floor. He closed his eyes. He was still in prison, still locked. But something had shifted. He realized something powerful. Freedom does not always come from outside. Sometimes it begins inside the mind first. And from that day, his spirit was no longer trapped by walls. It was a warm afternoon in 1970 on Robben Island. Years had passed. Prison life had not changed. But Mandela had changed deeply. He was no longer only a prisoner, he had become a teacher, a listener, a leader inside silence. Other prisoners gathered around him. They spoke about hope. They spoke about justice. Mandela listened carefully. Then he spoke slowly. His words were simple, but they carried strength. He encouraged patience. He encouraged discipline. He believed anger alone could not win freedom. The guards still controlled everything. But something invisible was growing. Respect. Even some guards began to notice him differently. Letters from the outside were rare. But when they came, Mandela read them again and again. News of protests reached him. The world outside was changing slowly. The pressure on the government was increasing. International voices started to speak against apartheid. The system was being questioned globally. Inside the prison, Mandela stayed calm. He refused hatred. He refused bitterness. This was not easy. Some days were heavy. Some nights were long. But he continued forward. He became a symbol of endurance. Endurance means staying strong through suffering. Even in silence, his name started to grow outside prison walls. People who had never met him began to speak his name. Hope was no longer only inside the prison. It was spreading beyond it. It was a bright morning in 1990 in Cape Town, South Africa. The world was watching closely. Something rare was about to happen. Mandela walked out of prison. After 27 years, the heavy gates finally opened. The air outside felt different. He had no anger on his face, only calm, only quiet strength. Crowds gathered outside, thousands of people, black, white, young, old. They had waited for this moment for years. Mandela lifted his hand slowly. People shouted his name. Some cried, some smiled through tears. Cameras flashed everywhere. But Mandela did not rush. He did not run. He walked slowly, step by step. His partner walked beside him. Her name was Winnie Mandela. She had also suffered during his imprisonment. The world expected anger. The world expected revenge. But Mandela spoke about peace. He said South Africa must heal. Heal means to become whole again after pain. Later he gave his first speech. His voice was steady, not loud, but clear. He said freedom was not complete yet. The system of apartheid still existed. But change was coming. Negotiations began. Negotiations means talks to find agreement. Old enemies sat at the same table. It was not easy. Trust was broken. Fear still remained. But Mandela insisted on dialogue. Years of tension slowly started to open. And then something historic happened. South Africa moved toward its first democratic election. An election where all people could vote. The man who was once called a criminal was now becoming a national leader. The same world that closed its doors on him was now listening to him. And the story was not finished yet. It was only reaching its most important chapter. It was a quiet evening in 1994 in South Africa. The country stood at a fragile moment. Hope was high, but fear was still present. Years of conflict had left deep wounds. Many people did not trust each other. Violence still appeared in some regions. The future felt uncertain. Mandela worked every day for unity. Unity means people coming together as one. He spoke to leaders from all sides. He asked them to choose peace over revenge. But the pressure was heavy. Some groups wanted more anger. Some wanted separation again. Mandela stood in the middle of this tension. He became the first black president of South Africa. It was a historic moment. But it did not end the struggle. It changed its shape. Now the struggle was not against prison walls. It was against division inside people's hearts. Mandela spent long hours meeting communities. He visited both victims and former enemies. He listened more than he spoke. Some days were emotionally heavy. He carried the weight of a whole nation. There were moments of sadness, too. Not everyone agreed with peace. Some felt justice was incomplete. Some felt healing was too slow. Mandela accepted this complexity. He knew change takes time. He knew wounds do not disappear quickly. He did not celebrate victory as an ending. He saw it as a beginning of responsibility. A new South Africa was born. But it still needed care, still needed patience, still needed time to grow. It was a calm morning in 2013 in Johannesburg, South Africa. News spread slowly. Nelson Mandela had passed away. The world stopped for a moment. Leaders from many countries sent messages. Ordinary people gathered in streets. They carried flowers. They carried memories. Mandela's legacy means what he left behind. And what he left was not only political change, it was emotional change. It was moral change. He showed that forgiveness is possible, even after deep pain, even after long suffering. Schools, streets, and parks were named after him. But his real legacy lived in people's hearts. He taught the world that peace is not weakness. Peace is strength with patience. Many leaders said he changed history, but Mandela always said something simple. He said he was only one person among many. His life became a story told everywhere, not as a perfect story, but as a human story, a story of struggle, a story of patience, a story of hope that never died. Even today, his name is spoken in classrooms, in speeches, in quiet conversations, and every time his story is told, one message remains clear. One person can change the direction of a nation. Nelson Mandela was not perfect. During his early years, he supported armed resistance. Some of these actions led to violence. This is a difficult truth in his story. Some people say he should have stayed fully peaceful from the start. Maybe this is true. But he lived in a time of extreme injustice and pressure. His choices came from a world filled with fear and anger. Nobody is perfect. Mandela was human. And that is part of what makes his story so powerful. He also made political compromises later in life. Some supporters felt these compromises were too soft. Others believed they were necessary for peace. He carried heavy responsibility. And sometimes responsibility means choosing the least harmful path, not the perfect one. His life shows both light and shadow, strength and struggle, wisdom and mistakes. This balance makes his journey real, not a legend without flaws, but a human life shaped by hard choices. And in this honesty, we see something deeper. Greatness is not about being flawless. It is about continuing forward, even when the path is unclear. Nelson Mandela's life teaches simple lessons for all of us. First lesson is patience. Real change takes time. It does not happen in one day. It grows slowly, like a tree. Second lesson is forgiveness. Holding anger only hurts the heart. Mandela showed that letting go can bring peace, even after deep pain. Third lesson is courage. Courage is not only fighting. Courage is also staying calm when everything feels broken. Fourth lesson is hope. Even in prison, he never stopped believing in a better future. Why do these lessons matter today? Because every human life has struggle. Every person faces moments of doubt. Mandela's story tells us something important. You are not alone in your struggle. He showed that even one person can stay strong inside weakness. Even one voice can become powerful over time. His life is not only history, it is a mirror for our own journey. When you feel lost, remember this story. When you feel weak, remember his patience. And when you feel stuck, remember that change always begins quietly, inside the mind first. Nelson Mandela learned patience in prison. He used language to unite people, to heal fear, to build trust. Words became his strongest tool. Today, you are also learning something powerful. You are learning English. You are opening new doors slowly. Mandela spoke to people who disagreed with him. He listened before he answered. You are doing something similar. You are listening to this story. You are training your mind to understand new sounds and meanings. Some days feel difficult in learning. Some words feel strange. Some sentences feel heavy. But Mandela also faced long, hard days. Yet he continued every single day. You are building something inside yourself. Not an empire, but a skill. A way to connect with the world. Every story you hear makes you stronger. Every word you understand is progress. Like Mandela, you are moving forward step by step. Quietly, but surely. If this story touched you, please like this video and subscribe to Story World English for more. Leave a comment below. Tell me which part of Nelson Mandela's story moved you the most. He turned pain into peace, and so can you.